Hypnotized, I don't know why she got me feeling this way. She's got a way about her. She's got a way about her.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, my name's Alexa Raye. And welcome to another video. I'm so glad you're here and I'm so glad you clicked on today's video. We are going to be tackling April TBR in today's video, and I am so excited because last month I may still be a little bit sick. So we're gonna ignore the last 5 seconds of my life. Before we hop into it though, I just wanna take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Book of the Month. You guys already know from so many videos of mine how obsessed I am with Book of the Month, and if you're not familiar with Book of the Month, isn't it your lucky day? Book of the Month is a super popular and fast-growing online book service for readers. Their mission is to promote new and emerging authors and help readers find books they love. Their team vets hundreds of books each month and gives readers their choice from a curated selection of new and early release titles, so you can spend more time reading and less time researching. Book of the Month is also risk-free, so you can skip any month, anytime, and you won't be charged. Plus, they have the best prices for new release hardcover fiction, and you guys can get your first book for only $9.99 using my code SPRING. How it works is every month you'll head over to Book of the Month, you'll pick out the books you are interested in reading. They will send them directly to you in their cutie little blue box, and I am so excited about these two books that I picked out this month because I have actually been hearing a lot of good things about them. So the first one I picked up is Camp Zero by Michelle Min Sterling. This is what it looks like. This just sounded really different and fun, and because it takes place in a dystopian world, I was just really interested in it. And then the second book I picked up is Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. This was the romance pick of the month, so of course I had to pick it up. Book of the Month is a steal. I highly recommend. Don't forget, you guys can get your first book for just $9.99 using my code SPRING. Last month was one of my best reading months in a very long time. I think I read a total of like 12 or 13 books, and a lot of them were 4- and 5-star reads. So for the month of April, as you can see, I am going to be a little ambitious and optimistic with my TBR. We have a total of 8 books on my April TBR that I am hoping we can get through. I'm hoping we can read them. I do have one book in here, as you can probably tell, that I am carrying over from last month's TBR, and we will talk all about Miss Magnolia Parks in a few minutes. Usually I only put about 5 to 6 books on my TBR because that's just more of a realistic TBR for me to tackle every month. But since March was such an incredible reading month for me, I thought, why not? Why not have a little fun, get a little twirly, add a few extra books on for the month of April. We're gonna hop right into my April TBR, and I am so excited. I should probably start with the book that I've carried over for now 2 months, I wanna say. I've carried this book over for 2 whole months now, and it is Miss Magnolia Parks. I'm actually 1 chapter in. I just never picked it back up. So we are going to be rolling this book into the month of April. I am going to hopefully tackle Magnolia Parks in the month of April. I don't know why I can't get into it. I've only read 1 chapter. I feel like people are very divided about this book because I hear it is a very toxic type of romance, but a lot of people who enjoy this book talk about how they love the Gossip Girl vibes in it. So that's like what I'm hanging on to, is the Gossip Girl vibes in this, and that's what I'm going to use to motivate myself to read this book. But because it is a very toxic type of romance, I've just heard very negative things about the romance in this book, in this story. It's been keeping me from reading it. I am going to be trying to tackle this in the month of April. Fingers crossed we can get into this, because this is literally one of the prettiest books I own too. I'm obsessed with the cover of this book. I'm actually obsessed with all the covers of this entire series. They are just gorgeous in my opinion, and I would really like to get into the series, so I then have a reason to go buy and collect the other books in the series. So Magnolia Parks is first on my April TBR. We're not going to talk too much about it just because it is the 3rd month that I am rolling it over into, so we're just gonna leave her there. Next up, I have Wretched by Emily McIntyre. This is the 3rd book in the Never After series, and you guys know from the last 2 months I've been reading book 1 and book 2 in the Never After series, and I have been so obsessed with this series. It is so freaking good. If you're not familiar with the Never After novels, they are dark fairy tale reimaginings, so they're not retellings. They are reimaginings. The first one I read was Hooked, and that was based off of Peter Pan. The second one I read was Scarred, and that was a Lion King reimagining, and that was just like blew me away. I was shocked at how much I really enjoyed that story. It's so fun because I love fairy tales. I'm like huge on Disney movies and just like classic fairy tales in general. Going into these books, you really have no idea what's going to happen because they also revolve around the villains in these stories. So I figured we would keep it going, and this is actually supposed to be a Wizard of Oz reimagining, which I don't know what to like expect. I feel like I have to go back and rewatch the Wizard of Oz. I'm gonna read the little blurb on the back for you guys because it's honestly one of my favorite parts of these books. They are so good. Once upon a time, there was a wicked girl. She lost everything that mattered, causing darkness to unfurl. Impulsive and intelligent, she helped her family name grow strong, but then one day a man without a heart came along. An undercover agent meant to spy and bring back tips, following down her hidden path of faded yellow bricks. She hated him, he wanted her, she was too good to be true, but a woman can be great and terrible too. So this is going to be about the Wicked Witch of the West, and I'm assuming her love interest. No. Okay, I clearly have no idea what I'm talking about. Nonetheless, I am very excited for this. Emily McIntyre is incredible. I'm obsessed with her writing style. She literally makes you fall in love with the villains, and that's just so cool to me. Going into the series, I never thought in a million years that I'd be rooting for Captain Hook or Scar from The Lion King to get the girl in the end, have their happy endings, and I was. Like, I was absolutely obsessed with them. I was swooning over them. I'm so excited for this one because I feel like it's gonna be just as amazing. If you are into Disney movies, if you're into fairy tales, but you're also kind of looking for something a little different, something to spice up your reading, I definitely recommend that series because they are very, very fun books, and I'm always just obsessing over them for so long after reading them. Next up, we have Addicted for Now by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the third book in the Addicted series, and she's a big one. Okay, we are looking at almost 600 pages. I'm really excited for this because I read Addicted to You, I think back in February, and it's such a highly recommended and requested book on my channel, so I read that back in February. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. It was very different because it's about two people who have addictions, Lily and Lo. Lily is a sex addict, Lo is an alcoholic, and they're best friends who are fake dating to basically cover up their addictions. That was just a very different type of read for me. I've never read a romance that kind of revolves around addiction like that. It was kind of annoying to read, and I think I only rated it like 3 stars, honestly. This is so weird because I feel like it's the complete opposite for so many readers of this series, but last month I wound up reading book 2, which was Ricochet, and that basically took place right after Addicted to You, and we were kind of seeing the aftermath of everything that happened. We're watching Lily and Lo navigate a long-distance relationship, and just like all this crazy stuff happened. We also get more of an insight into Lily's life and not just Lo's life, so I really, really liked book 2. I kind of liked it more than book 1, and so many of you have told me that book 1 is just kind of setting up the entire world because the Addicted world is just so big and crazy. We are basically getting into the big chunk of Lily and Lo's story, and I'm guessing we are going to see what happens next. And I think we're gonna see Lily and Lo kind of come back together, and we're gonna watch them as they tackle being together, but also trying to overcome their addictions and just be better people for each other. You can really tell that they would do anything for one another, and their love is so beautiful, you know what I mean? Then we have A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is book 2 in the series. I read book 1 last month, and I was absolutely obsessed with it. That book, it changed my outlook on fantasy books, but it also just changed my outlook on reading in general because it was just so different. I've never read anything like that one before, and I just genuinely really, really enjoyed it. It is a book that is so hyped up across every social media. Like, everyone talks about the series, they're obsessed with it, they love it, they rave about it, and because of that, I was so nervous to get into the series, but I have to say, like, after reading it, I get it. I get the hype, I get the obsession with it. I am also obsessed. This is book 2 in the series. We have another pretty big book, which can be a little intimidating sometimes. We're looking at another 600-page book, and this is basically continuing on right after book 1. I'm really excited to continue on in the series. So many of you have told me that book 2 is like the best book in the entire series, and that it's literally going to wreck me because everything I think I know about these characters from book 1 gets totally mixed up in book 2, and I'm just really excited to read more about Rhys and Feyre and see what happens between them. The way book 1 ended between Feyre and Rhys too, like I have no idea what to expect honestly, but I'm so excited for it, and I'm like feeling the fantasy vibes with that series. So I'm actually gonna skip down to this one really quick because since I enjoyed that book so much and it kind of kickstarted me getting into fantasy books, I decided to add Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber onto my April TBR. This is another fantasy fairy tale type of read. I've actually had this book for such a long time now, and I originally picked it up because it is probably one of the prettiest books I own. And then I also picked up book 2, and it's like a pearly purple color. It's gorgeous, okay? It's kind of just been sitting on my shelf for such a long time now. I've always been so nervous to get into fantasy books. Recently, I have seen multiple people come out and talk about this book and rave about the series, so I am very excited to be starting it. I know this takes place in the same world as Caraval, and I do have Caraval. A lot of people say that you should read the Caraval series before getting into this series because it kind of explains the world to you and you get more familiar with the terms and stuff like that. You don't have to read that series first, so I'm not going to read that series first. It's supposed to give major fairy tale vibes. How far would you go for happily ever after? For as long as she can remember, Evangeline Fox has believed in true love and happy endings until she learns that the love of her life will marry another. Desperate to stop the wedding and to heal her wounded heart, Evangeline strikes a deal with the charismatic but wicked Prince of Hearts. In exchange for his help, he asks for 3 kisses to be given at the time and place of his choosing. But after Evangeline's first promised kiss, she learns that bargaining with an immortal is a dangerous game, and that the Prince of Hearts wants far more from her than she'd pledged. He has plans for Evangeline, plans that will either end in the greatest happily ever after or the most exquisite tragedy. Look how gorgeous this is. So excited for this. Next up we have The Elite by Kiara Cass. This is book 2 in the selection series. I read book 1 last month, another very highly requested book on my channel, and book 1 left off in a very weird cliffhanger type of way, so I thought for April we would jump immediately into The Elite, see what happens next, see what happens between America, Aspen, and Maxon. It's a love triangle trope, it's a friends to lovers trope, it takes place in a dystopian world. I really enjoyed book 1. It was a very feel-good type of read. Although I found it was very predictable at times, I still really enjoyed the story. A lot of people say they don't like the book and they feel like if they were younger they would have enjoyed it more, which I do agree. I rated the book 4 stars when I read it last month. If I read it in like middle school or high school, I probably would have rated it like 5 stars. It would have been my favorite book ever, but just because I'm not like in that time of my life anymore, it just wasn't something that blew my mind away. But nonetheless, I still really enjoyed the story and the whole concept of it. It does give off very bachelor type of vibes. Basically 35 girls go to the castle and they compete to win the heart of the prince, and that's how he picks his future wife, and America Singer is in the selection. She is one out of the 35 girls. Her heart belongs back home with another boy who is below her class, so she can't actually be with this other boy. I'm excited to see what happens in book 2. I'm really rooting for Maxon, honestly. I kind of wish they'd come out with different covers for the books. I'm not really big on real people on the covers of books. It's kind of cringy to me, and these ones aren't the worst ones in the world. They're not the worst covers I've ever seen with real people on them, but I feel like they could come out with such cool and pretty ones for this. Next up we have The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. So many people talk about this series and say it's like the best series ever. They're obsessed with it. They're swooning over it. I'm going to attempt to read book 1 in the month of April. I have had this book for quite some time now. I don't know why I haven't picked it up, honestly. I don't know. I'm very much a mood reader, and that's how I go about picking my TBRs. A lot of people say that this gives off like Disneyland vibes, and I kind of love that. This tells the story of Rowan and Zara, and I believe this is like a workplace type of trope. So Rowan is Zara's boss. I think this is a Grumpy Meets Sunshine trope, and I think the whole story revolves around the theme park and what they're gonna do with it, how they're gonna renovate it and change it, stuff like that. It's just really interesting. Like I said, I've never read anything like that before that like revolves around an amusement park, so I think it's gonna be super fun. I also love the little chapter pictures. Yeah, it's a Grumpy Meets Sunshine, which I absolutely love. And then the last and final book on my April TBR is 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. I have had this book for quite some time now, and I actually was very upset because if you see here, there's a line going through the page that that's actually how it is. So I haven't read it because of that reason, but I decided this month I'm going to try and tackle it. Probably will try and read through the physical copy because it looks like it's about half of the book is fine and then the other half is like the misprint. I think I'll switch over. I believe this is available on Kindle Unlimited, so I'll switch over and finish it on my Kindle. I still get comments to this day about how great this story is and how it's such a sad but beautiful read, and you guys rave about it. You guys rave about this book the same way you raved about Addicted to You, so I have to try it out. I have to see what the hype's about. I've also seen like other booktubers talk about this book and how much they love it and adore it. We are going to give it a try in the month of April. One boy, one girl, a bond that is forged in an instant and cherished for a decade. A bond that neither time nor distance can break. A bond that will last forever. Or so they believe. When 17-year-old Ruin Christensen returns from his native Norway to the sleepy town of Blossom Grove, Georgia, where he befriended Poppy Litchfield as a child, he has just one thing on his mind. Why did the girl who was one half of his soul, who promised to wait faithfully for his return, cut him off without a word of explanation? Ruin's heart was broken 2 years ago when Poppy fell silent. When he discovers the truth, he finds that the greatest heartache is yet to come. It's definitely a story that I really have not seen anything about like on Book Talk or anything. It's just one that I've heard like other booktubers talk about. It's a book that you guys have recommended to me for so long. Going into it, I have no idea what's going to happen, and I am a bit nervous because I feel like it's going to be one of those books that like make me sob. But that is all for my April TBR. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. Let me know down below if you are reading any of the books that I am also reading in the month of April, and then if you've read any of these books, comment down below and let me know what you thought about them because I am so excited to read them. I reply to every single comment, so make sure to come chat down below. April is just one of those months that really get me excited for summertime and all the fun things planned ahead. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video.